Divine Prophecies Revealed, Iran's Sacred Role in God's Plan for Redemption and Transformation. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The captives were not merely subjects of conquest, but a people laden with the weight of a promise, chosen descendants of God's covenant. Among them stood Daniel, a youth of noble lineage, whose heart bled for his homeland, a land now in ruins, where the calm of worship had been shattered beneath Babylonian tyranny. As the cries of Jerusalem filled the air around him, Daniel knelt on the cool earth of exile, his breath mingling with the lamentation of his people. Each sigh was a supplication, each tear carried the collective grief of Israel. In the silence of the night, he sought the Most High with fervent prayers, imploring for understanding, beckoning the divine to unveil the mysteries tethered to his heritage. On one such fateful evening, as darkness enveloped Babylon, Daniel was seized by a vision unlike any other, a tapestry woven across the heavens. In the splendor of this divine panorama, nations appeared before his spirit, their histories illuminated in sacred light. Amidst them arose a figure, adorned in the strength of Persia, a powerful empire looming over the Israelites' current captivity. Fear coiled like a serpent in Daniel's heart, but awe quickly overshadowed it as the truth settled within him. Persia was not just a conqueror, it was a vessel in the mysterious architecture of God's design for redemption. The divine painter was setting the stage for restoration, not just for Israel, but for all nations. This revelation ignited hope within Daniel's spirit and the hearts of his fellow exiles. Yet within this hope lurked a dilemma, a gnawing uncertainty. How could he, an exile in a foreign land, be the instrument through which God would fulfill his promises, not only to Israel, but to these Gentile nations? The shadows deepened, and spiritual warfare intensified, challenging his faith and resolve. Each night brought deeper struggles against the spiritual adversaries that whispered despair, taunting him to abandon the light emanating from his faith. Days unraveled into nights as Daniel fasted, entrusting his spirit to God's divine guidance, imploring for wisdom. Each prayer wove through the atmosphere, seeking the assurance of God's presence. Doubts unraveled like threads in a worn tapestry as a whisper echoed through the cosmos. God's promise of return lingered in the air, an assurance filtered through agony and yearning. His heart ached under the mantle of prophecy. Yet in the midst of turmoil, hope flickered. Persia would not merely be an oppressor, but a part of the divine narrative, ushering Israel back to their homeland. As Daniel penned this dream, circles of hope emerged, proof of God's unyielding love extending even to the Gentiles. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Daniel's quill moved with urgency, visions swirling before his mind's eye, revealing further shadows of nations intertwined with Israel's fate, as the weight of divine purpose pressed upon him. Yet, the fear of impending darkness stalked him. An unseen battle loomed on the horizon, unanswered questions clashing within a faithful spirit. Will he remain steadfast? Or will the conflict between faith and despair usher in a bittersweet surrender? As he wrestled with these divine mysteries, his heart pulsed with longing, leading all who would hear his story to seek divine resolution in God's sacred narrative. The tapestry of God's unfolding plan lay before him, yet its full meaning remained shrouded in divine silence, leaving Daniel and its witnesses yearning for clarity amid the sacred shadows of their journey. In the stillness of the Babylonian night, a weight hung in the air, as if all creation held its breath waiting upon a word from the Almighty. Daniel, his heart steeped in longing, rose from his prayers, the quill poised above parchment. a vessel for the divine revelation burning within him. Yet with ink in hand, he wrestled with thoughts that clouded his mind. Where would this path lead, and how would the hand of God move through him, amidst the shadows of captors and the echoes of his homeland? As dawn broke upon Babylon, the sun cast its golden rays upon the city, revealing the swirl of daily life. Merchants setting up stalls near the Euphrates, children playing in the streets, and soldiers patrolling with fierce vigilance. Within this contrast of light and darkness, Daniel felt a stirring in his spirit, a call to rise, not merely as a captive, but as a prophet, chosen to carry forth God's message. It was on this day that he resolved to seek audience with the king, an audacious venture cloaked in prayer and the assurance of God's sovereignty. As he entered the grand court, the weight of nations rested heavily upon his shoulders. What could one man whisper in the ear of a king who seemed to embody worldly power? Yet Daniel was no ordinary man. He was a steward of divine secrets, a herald of God's purposes for Israel. "Daniel," spoke the king, eyes piercing through the haze of confusion that had taken hold. "I hear you possess the wisdom of the gods. There are troubling dreams that plague my nights. Can you unveil their meaning?" With a heart said to be firm and unwavering, Daniel bowed low before the throne, the weight of heaven poised for revelation. "O king, live forever. The dreams you seek to unravel are indeed a manifestation of the divine, a glimpse of that which is to come. God has granted me understanding for your spirit's unrest." In that moment the court fell silent, awaiting the words that would issue forth, words that were a blend of grace and admonition. "Behold, O King Nebuchadnezzar," Daniel declared, his voice echoing against the stone walls, "your dream proclaims the rise and fall of empires. You are but a head of gold, a kingdom mighty yet temporary, yet it is the feet of clay and iron, divided yet strong, that shall inevitably lead to your demise." He paused, the tension palpable, before continuing. "In the days to come, a kingdom shall arise that will shatter and consume all others, a kingdom not made by human hands." As he spoke, Daniel's heart pulsed with a mingling of fear and reverence. Could it be that he was witnessing the hand of God unfolding before his own eyes? The realization washed over him that an unyielding truth lay ahead. God's redemption would not merely sweep Israel from captivity, but would extend to the ends of the earth, drawing in nations like Persia that had once threatened their existence. Suddenly, a shadow shifted upon the dais. A ruler's countenance faltered. "What manner of kingdom is this?" Nebuchadnezzar questioned, a tremor of curiosity volleying through his voice. It was a perilous inquiry, a threshold not easy to cross. "And yet," Daniel cautioned, "within this dream lies hope for those who return to God, for his dominion shall be eternal, embracing both you and the people of Israel, restoring what was lost." As the words settled, clarity pierced the darkness, igniting within Daniel the privilege bestowed upon him to be a vessel of divine revelation. As he stepped back, Daniel could feel the urgency of the moment pressing down, for the wisest among them may not yet comprehend what was unfolding. The divine threads were being woven, binding captivity to restoration, calling forth a plan far greater than their understanding. Unbeknownst to them, a divine thread extended beyond exile. It beckoned Israel home and promised transformation, not just for one nation, but for all that would bow before the grace and glory of the Most High. The promises were yet to unfold as deep mysteries awaited revelation, leading all those who sought with aching hearts toward an unforeseen destiny. The narrative continued, and beneath its surface the heartbeat of redemption pumped fervently, whispering secrets only the faithful could perceive. Would this new kingdom stand when all seemed lost? Would the hope of Persia transcend mere conquest, bringing forth a legacy entwined in divine love? There lay a mystery yet to grasp, leaving Daniel in the cadence of prayer, deeply aware that the tapestry was far larger than he alone had perceived. As the echoes of Daniel's proclamation faded, a profound silence enveloped the court, holding the breath of many who witnessed this moment of divine unveiling. "Nebuchadnezzar," with eyes widened as if he had gazed into the very depths of eternity, leaned forward, the weight of his reign pressing upon him like never before. "Speak, Daniel. What shall come of the empire that follows me? What king shall rise, and what nations shall fall?" Daniel, emboldened by the Spirit, felt the careful intertwining of divine wisdom and human inquiry. "O king," he replied, his voice steady as the pulse of God's promise, "the kingdom that follows yours shall be inferior, yet it shall emerge from strength. It shall be fierce like a bear, and shall engulf many lands. This is a prophecy of the Medes and Persians, as it is written that they shall bulldoze through the earth, their dominion marked by a great hunger." In the murmur of astonishment that rippled through the gathering, the king's brow furrowed. The prophecy thrust upon him was more than mere rumor. It took shape as the plan of the Almighty, and he was caught in its current. Yet Daniel continued, "And after the Medes and Persians comes a kingdom characterized by swiftness and ambition, an empire like a leopard. It shall conquer with great speed, and its leader will be a conqueror, surpassing all others. The Greeks shall rise, unstoppable in their quest for glory." The words were now sharper, cutting through the apathy of rulers who had forgotten the God of Israel. Seeing the reflection of doubt in Nebuchadnezzar's eyes, Daniel pressed further. "And after these kingdoms, the kingdom that shall never perish shall arise, not by might of man or power of arms, but through the Spirit of the living God. It shall crush all other kingdoms to dust, but it shall also reign in mercy and justice." He held the king's gaze as if time itself collapsed in that very moment. At once there was a stirring in the hearts of those present, a flicker of hope that was nearly extinguished by despair. The anticipation of these events unfolding filled the air, and whispers of the one who would come pierced through the fabric of Babylon. "O Daniel," Nebuchadnezzar murmured, awareness dawning upon him. "Can there truly be a kingdom not shaped by the hands of men? Can hope flourish in the shadow of this great city?" With resolute faith, Daniel affirmed, "Indeed, O king, for our God, the God of Israel, is faithful. Those who have faith in him, who seek him earnestly, shall not be put to shame. His plan encompasses mercy, embrace, and restoration. The clouds shall part, and his light shall illuminate the path for those lost in darkness." And as silent tears fell from the corners of the king's eyes, the depth of his pride seemed to melt away before the majesty of divine truth, the weight of future burdens beginning to lift. Around him, courtiers exchanged bewildered glances, sensing that a monumental shift had begun, an unveiling of sovereignty that surpassed their understanding. Yet in the shadows, the shrewd hearts of the wise men of Babylon, keen to preserve their own status, whispered among themselves, plotting, and within their machinations lay the secret shadows of doubt and division. Daniel, keenly aware of the tension and the peril that awaited him, felt the tug of the prophetic thread woven through time, reaching back to the days of old. A flicker of what was yet to come ignited in his spirit, the realization that this was only the beginning of a saga that would echo through generations. "Behold," Daniel said, raising his voice like a prophet of old, "time will reveal that the stone cut without hands will become a mountain that fills the earth." The proclamation echoed through the hall, casting shadows and light upon the multitude, awaiting a kingdom that would rise from the ashes, marking the dawn of an eternal reign. Yet therein lay a hushed mystery, a challenge for those who had eyes to see and ears to hear. What would become of Israel? What wrath would befall the unfaithful? The threads of divine purpose were tightening, continuing to weave a narrative spanning beyond Babylon, igniting within hearts kindled by hope. As Daniel departed the court, he left behind a question hanging, like the scent of incense in holy places. But what lay beyond this kingdom yet unwritten in the hearts of men? Thus the divine saga unfolded, revealing the depth of God's sovereign plan, inviting all into that sacred dance of redemption. As Daniel stepped away from the court, the weight of his revelations clung to him like a mantle. The whispers of the gathered nobles continued to swirl, each voice tinged with wonder and trepidation. The hall was thick with unspoken fears, and the hearts of many stirred restlessly, pondering the destinies woven into Daniel's words. Outside the great palace, The sun was sinking, casting long shadows across the golden streets of Babylon. The air was heavy with the scent of incense and the distant sounds of revelry. But Daniel, with his thoughts turning inward, moved to the quiet solitude of his chamber, the fear of the Lord echoing in his heart. He knelt upon the cool stones, enveloped in the stillness that marked the presence of the Almighty. "O Lord God of Israel," he prayed, the fervor of his soul pouring out, "you have revealed great mysteries and marvelous truths. Yet I am but a vessel, and these words weigh heavily upon me. For Israel, your chosen people, stands in the balance of your covenant. What do you require of me in these troubling days?" In that moment, a vision of brilliance enveloped him, a luminescent light that pressed upon his spirit, and he found himself once more in the throne room of the Most High. There sat the Ancient of Days, his robes as white as snow, and the fire of his throne radiated purity and justice. "Daniel, beloved of my heart," the voice thundered like the rushing waters, "what you have foreseen is but a ripple in the tapestry of my sovereign purpose. Nations shall rise and fall, yet I hold all in my hand. Worry not for the kingdoms of man. They are but dust before me." As Daniel listened, awe and humility swept over him. "But, O Lord, what of your people? What of the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Will they not perish amidst the chaos of these kingdoms?" Then the Lord spoke, his tone enveloping Daniel in comfort and admonition. "Great calamities shall come upon the earth, and my people shall endure trials, yet from the heart of devastation shall spring forth a great awakening. For the nations of the Medes and Persians are set to fulfill my purpose. They will provide a path for my ordained deliverance. Though they are fierce and often merciless, their rule shall be established for a time, and I shall preserve a remnant of Israel within their midst." With newfound clarity, Daniel understood that the very instruments of despair could serve the divine plan of redemption. "O Lord, how shall this redemption unfold? How shall your light shine in the darkness?" he humbly asked. "Behold," said the Ancient of Days, "a stone shall be manifest, not cut by human hands, which shall shatter the kingdoms of this world. And within this stone lies the breath of resurrection, the promise of life anew. From it will spring forth the faithful ones who shall live out my covenant, bearing witness to my sovereignty." The vision began to fade, yet Daniel felt the fire of the prophecy burn within him still. As he returned to himself, the weight of glory and responsibility lay heavy upon him, stirring him to action. He rose, invigorated by divine clarity, his heart resolved to share God's unfolding narrative of hope. Stepping out into the fading light, he gazed upon the mighty walls of Babylon, elevated under the vibrant hues of twilight. How far-reaching are the designs of the Almighty, he thought. Even amidst the heights of pride, his mercy endures. Israel shall not be forsaken, and in the alignment of time and eternity a whisper unfurled within him. But what shall become of the stone, and how shall the nations respond when it comes? What paths shall Israel walk in the light of such revelations? Thus, in the stillness of the darkening sky, the stage was set. A sacred journey awaited, reshaping destinies, revealing the meaning hidden within God's sovereign plan, a plan that would not just touch nations, but ensconce all in the embrace of redemption. As Daniel prepared his heart to convey the visions he bore, the dawn broke over Babylon, illuminating the city with hues of hope. The streets filled with murmurs, the people waking from their slumber, unaware of the divine orchestration that was unfolding. The air crackled with anticipation, as divine purpose danced between the realms of heaven and earth. Having risen early in the morning, Daniel sought the counsel of others among the faithful who had remained in Babylon, men of wisdom and understanding. It was his desire to commune with them, to fortify their hearts against the trials that loomed ahead. He understood the urgency of their plight, recognizing that in order for them to remain steadfast, they required the hope that comes only from the Lord. "Let us gather," Daniel implored of those loyal to the God of Israel. "For the Almighty has shown me things deep and mysterious, and together we must remain vigilant. The men, though weary from the burdens of exile, quickly assembled in response to his call, their eyes alight with curiosity and fear. As they convened, Daniel recounted the vision of the stone that would be hewn without hands, sharing how it would rise to break the power of the kingdoms of men. The hearts of the gathered men trembled, each man feeling the weight of significance in such a revelation. "Brothers," Daniel said, "do not despair at the thought of what is to come. For in the heart of calamity, the Lord promises deliverance. It is our duty to prepare ourselves and our children for the days ahead." In that moment, a voice from among them spoke. Hananiah, a man revered for his steadfast faith. "But, Daniel, how can we stand against the fury of nations? Surely the power of Babylon is great, and the fear of the Persian kings is upon us. What shall we do when the shadows of darkness draw near?" With clarity shining in his eyes, Daniel replied, "We will look to the Lord our God. He is our shield and exceeding great reward. The state of our hearts must not waver. We are to watch and pray. Remember the promise, 'I will preserve a remnant,' says the Lord. We will be that remnant, witnessing his glory upon the earth." Those words ignited a spark within the hearts of the gathered men as they prayed fervently, beseeching the Lord for courage and understanding of his will. They lifted their voices together, calling upon the name of the Almighty, each pleading for the strength to bear the burdens of coming days. As the day unfolded, a solemn hush descended upon the group. An inner conviction resonated with Daniel, leading him to direct their attention to the scrolls of the prophets. "Let us remind ourselves of past deliverances. The Red Sea was divided, the walls of Jericho fell, and the Lord shut the mouths of lions," he declared, strength coursing through him. Yet in the quietness a thought unfurled in Daniel's mind. A deepened insight was brewing within him. What if this stone is a symbol of hope that transcends the present kingdoms? What if it also represents a profound truth about the very nature of faith that must be rekindled in our hearts? As belief blossomed among them, their faith solidified, drawing upon the understanding that God works not just in the grand designs of nations, but within the intimate details of individual lives. And thus the questions lingered in Daniel's soul, urging him to probe deeper. What would the remnant's role be in the unfolding story? How might their lives weave into the greater narrative of God's redemptive work? As the shadows lengthened once more, a profound silence enveloped the company, and a whisper of destiny echoed within Daniel. But what shall the remnant endure in the days of trial? How shall the stone manifest its power among those whom God has chosen? Each question pierced the air with purpose. A divine mystery hung tantalizingly, hinting at more to come, urging the hearts of men towards prayer and preparation for the unfolding of God's sovereign plan. As the sun reached its zenith, casting brilliant rays upon the sands of Babylon, Daniel's assembly sat in contemplative silence. The fervent prayers had woven an atmosphere thick with expectation. Each man understood, not just in their minds, but deep within their very souls, that they were participants in a larger narrative, the divine unfolding of God's purpose for his people. "Brothers," Daniel began, his voice steady but imbued with urgency, "the visions I have received are not mere dreams, but resonant calls to action. The stone, hewn without hands, signifies not only the end of earthly kingdoms, but heralds the coming of eternal dominion. Can you not perceive what the Lord is declaring?" In the stillness that followed, a sense of profound reverence filled the air. Mishael, one of the wise men present, leaned forward, his brow furrowed with thought. "But how shall this come to pass, Daniel? What signs shall precede such a mighty act of the Lord?" "The nations will rage and darkness will cover the earth," Daniel replied, recalling the words of the prophets, which echoed like thunder within him. "Yet the glory of the Lord shall arise upon us." The weight of the moment pressed upon them. The shadows of empires loomed thick outside their gathering. "What then shall our part be?" Another voice echoed, trembling with the burdens of anticipation. How do we shift the tides of such calamity? Daniel stepped closer, his eyes ablaze with the fire of revelation. We shall stand firm in faith, akin to our forefathers in the furnace of affliction. Remember the words of Isaiah. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. Our witness to the world stands not in our strength, but in our unyielding trust in God's providence. As day drew to a close, casting long shadows upon ancient stones, Daniel directed their attention towards the horizon, where the setting sun painted the sky with hues of crimson and gold. Look at what shapes the dawn. Though it may rise through struggle, the light shall pierce the darkness. Suddenly a rustle broke the reverie, and from the edge of their gathering emerged Azariah, his face earnest with revelation. I have heard the whispers in the marketplace, he said, urgency lacing his tone. The kings of Persia are making plans. The royal court debates the fate of our people. If we do not act, we may find ourselves overshadowed by their power. Daniel nodded solemnly, recognizing the truth of Azariah's words. Then we must prepare, not merely with swords and shields, but with the fervor of intercession. We shall send our petitions unto the Lord, for our greatest weapon is our faith. The men gathered once more, voices intertwining in a rich tapestry of prayer, each heart echoing the promise of deliverance. Fervent supplications ascended like incense, beseeching the Almighty for wisdom and strength. In the midst of their prayers, a stirring rose within Daniel's spirit, a revelation coalescing like the dawn itself. It is in the sacred role of the remnant, he spoke, his voice rising with newfound clarity, that our faith will be tested, and God's sovereign will be made known. The stone will crush the statue of arrogance, yet it must first take root within our hearts, transforming our lives into vessels of His glory. As the gathering drew to a close, and the night enveloped the city, a cloud of divine expectation hovered over them, the air electric with prophecy. Daniel's heart pulsed with the rhythm of God's design, and he realized a profound truth. Thus we too are stones, shaped not by human hands but by the Master's touch. Will we be willing to endure with faith as we await the unfolding of His plan? And within the silence that followed, like the distant sound of thunder, the words resonated with cosmic resonance as an enigmatic mystery echoed in Daniel's spirit. Will those who have eyes to see and ears to hear recognize their purpose when the hour of trial draws near? As the night deepened and the stars sparkled like promises strewn across the heavens, the heart of Babylon throbbed with unease. Within the inner chambers of the palace, whispers of royal intrigue reached the ears of Daniel and his companions. Azariah's words lingered in the air. The kings of Persia are making plans. Each man felt the weight of impending trials, but they bonded together in resolute faith. Let us seek the Lord this night, Daniel proposed, for in prayer lies our strength. They withdrew to a secluded place, a humble chamber adorned with the fading tapestries of ancient victories. Candles flickered gently, illuminating the fervent faces of the remnant, a community of hope cradled within divine promises. As they bowed in supplication, Daniel's heart burned with the weight of his visions. "O Lord," he cried, "you alone know the plans you have for us, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give us a future and a hope." Jeremiah 29:11. Grant us clarity amidst uncertainty, wisdom as we stand in the breach. Hours slipped by filled with sacred intercession. In stillness a vision unraveled before Daniel's eyes, a great mountain, towering and formidable, yet steadily cracked by a stone that grew from a small hill. He beheld the splendor of the stone, illuminating the darkness, filling the valleys and bringing order to chaos. It was a revelation of God's ultimate triumph over earthly kingdoms. "What does this mean, O God?" Daniel whispered, his heart quaking with the weight of revelation. In that moment the voice of the Lord echoed softly, a reminder of the covenant He made. "The stone which the builders rejected shall become the cornerstone." Psalm 118:22. "Pay heed, for the time has come for the remnant to be a light to the nations." Thus dripping with the urgency of divine purpose, Daniel arose and addressed his companions. Brothers, behold the sovereignty of God. The stone symbolizes our Messiah, who will be raised for all peoples. We are called to prepare the way and testify to his coming glory. Mishael, eyes alight with understanding, spoke with fervor. Shall we not declare his goodness to those who dwell in darkness? Those in Persia need to know his redemption. Indeed, came the enthusiastic chorus from the assembly. Let us not be quieted by fear. Like our ancestors, we shall boldly speak of him, even amidst opposition. Thus faith flowed through them like a river. As dawn approached, they set their hearts towards the royal court. Yet a tempest brewed in the unseen realms. The powers of darkness conspired against them. Each hopeful heart was intertwined with the very fabric of divine prophecy. Above, in the courts of heaven where the Prince of Peace reigned, the Father heard their prayers. A messenger dispatched by angelic hosts descended, illuminating the counsel of the Almighty. Fear not, for I have preserved a remnant in Persia, who will rise in faithfulness. I will turn their hearts, and together they shall usher in my kingdom. But an air of anticipation lingered. Will they recognize the fulfillment of my promise when peril rises? The Lord's voice resounded, beckoning Daniel's attention. And as the first light of day brushed the horizon, igniting the world anew, Daniel felt a heavy urgency drape over the assembly. The time was near, and yet they needed discernment to navigate what lay before them. In hushed whispers of prophecy and heavy anticipation, the breath of God surged through their hearts. What will it take, Daniel pondered silently, for the hearts of men to return to the true King before the stone breaks through? The reverberations echoed. God's plan was unfolding, and every eye and ear must awaken to the last call of the faithful before the darkness enveloped the earth. Would they, in their frailty, withstand the tempest to come, embracing the unbreakable stone? As the sun rose over Babylon, casting rays of golden light through the window bars, Daniel and his companions, invigorated with newfound resolve, approached the palace with a sense of purpose. The weight of their mission pressed firmly upon their hearts. It was not merely their lives at stake, but the fate of many souls who wandered in despair. Upon entering the royal court, the air was thick with tension. King Nebuchadnezzar's visage reflected a mix of impatience and intrigue. His council had been summoned, and whispers of prophecy lingered like a shroud. Daniel, sensing the atmosphere, moved forward, his spirit unyielding amidst the royal grandeur. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice baritone yet steady, "I have come not to seek favor, but to proclaim the message of the one true God." He felt the weight of every gaze turned in his direction, both curious and skeptical. "Speak," commanded the king, his voice a thunderous echo in the hall. "Your words have piqued my interest." Knowing that this was a moment decreed by divine providence, Daniel invoked the Lord's wisdom. "The Most High God has given you realms and power, O king, yet he has laid before you a revelation. Just as the stone strikes the feet of the great image in your dream, so shall the kingdoms of this earth crumble in the light of his truth." Nebuchadnezzar's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing. "Are you speaking of my dream of gold and iron? What of these kingdoms?" "Yes, my lord," Daniel affirmed, emboldened by the Spirit. "The stone that is cut without hands is the axis upon which all history turns. It represents the kingdom of our God, unshakable, eternal. In days to come, the rulers of Persia shall emerge as instruments of his purpose, playing their part in this grand narrative." At this proclamation, whispers erupted from the court, a mixture of disbelief and awe. Mishael and Azariah stood at Daniel's side, praying fervently, seeking the heart of God to remain shielded in this moment of vulnerability. "Tell me then, wise Daniel," Nebuchadnezzar replied, both wary and fascinated. "What will this mean for my reign? Shall I be stripped of my glory?" With conviction unwavering, Daniel replied, "Every earthly throne is subject to the sovereignty of the Creator. To lead with humility is to be a vessel of divine grace. Know this, King. Your heart must be turned toward mercy and righteousness, for the stone acts both in judgment and in salvation. As his words settled within the hall, a palpable current swept through the assembly. Some officials exchanged glances filled with fear, yet others murmured in curiosity, envisioning a world redefined by this prophecy. Suddenly, from the rear of the hall, a voice pierced the silence. "Why should we trust this vision, Daniel? Our forefathers worshipped idols and embraced falsehoods. What assurance do we have of this stone?" Daniel's heart quickened. Perchance this moment was a testing of the very faith they struggled to uphold. "Consider, O officer, the testimonies of the past. Abraham's faith, Moses' leadership, and David's heart, all attested to the truth of God's unfailing promises, safeguarded through trials. The stone has already begun to roll forth into the hearts of those who seek him." As the murmurs intensified, Daniel felt the hand of God descend with weighty glory, urging him anew. "You, O remnant of Israel, are called to awaken the hearts of those in exile. Persia's heart will echo with the name of Yahweh, for he will empower you to bring forth transformation through his steadfast love." The assembly gasped, recognizing the portent in Daniel's assertion. As he spoke, he saw shadows of doubt begin to lift from the faces around him, replaced by a flicker of hope. Yet in the unseen realms darkness rumbled. The very powers that sought to stifle their voices conspired on the fringes. A serpent began to weave through the shadows of the royal court, a manifestation of the chief adversaries of the God of Israel. As the meeting drew to a close, Daniel sensed he stood on the precipice of something profound. "Take courage, my brothers. The stone shall come forth not only to judge but to transform, to provide salvation. But the hour is perilous, and many shall seek to silence the truth." With resolve, he concluded, "Will the spirits of this kingdom open to the allure of the stone before the moment passes? For the King of Kings is on the horizon, and even as the echoes of his proclamation faded, the divine plans intertwined and suffered not in silence. Would Persia accept the call? The questions lingered, resonating like a haunting hymn in the hearts of the faithful remnant. What awaits us on this path, when the stone finally claims its place in the hearts of men? Then, as silence gripped the court, a hush descended upon the assembly. Daniel stood resolute, his gaze steady upon Nebuchadnezzar, who seemed to grapple with the weight of the words just spoken. A flicker of uncertainty danced in the king's eyes as he turned his head slightly, indicating a signal to his advisers. The atmosphere was fraught with apprehension. Oftentimes men seek to silence prophecy, for it disturbs the peace of their convenience. Daniel declared, his voice ringing clear, imbued with prophetic clarity. "But know this, O king, the Most High's hand is not idle. His decrees shall be fulfilled, though they arise from the least expected of places." With a gesture, he pointed upward as if drawing the eyes of all present to the heavens. "Shall the heavens not bear witness? For even now the stone is rolling, breaking forth among the nations, seeking hearts that are tender and spirit open to his call." At this, the king leaned forward, intrigue mingling with dread. "You speak of a stone, a kingdom that shall shatter others. But how can I be certain? How do the people of Babylon perceive such matters? Surely they cling to the old gods." Daniel, sensing the royal tension, responded, "Let them come forth. Let them speak their case. For as it is written, the Lord does not delight in empty sacrifices nor hollow words. The nations shall indeed tremble, yet Israel's light shall pierce the darkness." A murmur rippled through the crowd as officials exchanged anxious glances. Some were skeptical, yet others were visibly moved, touched by the weight of hope that etched itself upon Daniel's words. Mishael, emboldened by the moment, exclaimed, "Our hopes rise, O king, for the God of Israel shall reveal wonders, and through his truth we shall be illuminated in the shifting tides of history." Nebuchadnezzar raised a hand, silencing the voices. "What do you claim this kingdom to be? A mere memory of God's will or a foretelling of our future? Speak plainly. Shall we forsake our gods for yours?" With a deep breath, Daniel anchored himself in the Spirit's guidance. "It is not for me to compel, O king, but to reveal what is written. For the God of Israel shall gather his remnant and bring forth a deliverance. Nations shall rise and fall, yet from this very land shall emerge a profound faith, a faith that will fulfill the prophecy spoken through his prophets since the days of old. Just then in the shadows of the throne room, shadows began to coalesce. The air thickened. A dark cloud seemed to hang low as a figure stepped forward. A sorcerer of Babylon, clad in dark robes, a merchant of deceit. I rebuke your words, Daniel. Who are you to presume to know the heart of prophecy? The man scoffed, glaring into the eyes of the prophet. Our traditions are strong. We will not bow to your foreign god. Your traditions, Daniel replied, unwavering, are but fleeting wisps against the eternal weight of truth. Even the wisest among men cannot sway the hand of God. He has declared his purpose, and his stone shall crush all that stands against his name. A collective gasp erupted from the court as the adversary retreated into the shadows, anger and confusion swirling like tempest winds. Daniel turned to the king once more, his heart ablaze with unyielding strength. Awaken, O Nebuchadnezzar, and consider the days to come. Will your heart soften before the stone, or shall pride blind you to the truth? In the distance, thunder rumbled, a whisper of divine judgment stirring the air as if to remind them of the heavens' authority over all earthly kings. The people fidgeted, uncertainty clenching their hearts, as if sensing the prelude to a great awakening or impending storm. Suddenly, the heavens shifted, clouds piled high. In the end, when the stone claims its rightful place and the valleys tremble, Daniel's faith surged. The true identity of God's purpose shall be revealed in splendor and strength. The time draws near for the nations to behold his light. Thus the saga unfurled, a clash of kingdoms and the stones of destiny rolling forth, and hope twinkled amidst the shadows. Would the heart of Babylon break before the unyielding truth? What divine mysteries awaited in the unfolding of his plan? The question resonated, calling forth anticipation in the hearts of all who dared to listen. And so, beneath the ever-watchful heavens, a moment arrived steeped in divine purpose, the final act of redemption ordained before the foundation of the world. The air pulsated with expectation, as if heaven itself leaned closer to witness the unfolding narrative of God's sovereign plan. In that charged atmosphere, Daniel, strengthened by the prayers of his faithful companions, stood before King Nebuchadnezzar, a man ensnared in the web of his own authority, yet yearning for the truth. "O king," he began, placing both hands upon the appointed steadfastness of his heart, "God, in his infinite wisdom, has orchestrated the rise and fall of empires, that the hearts of men might turn back to him. Your majesty has seen the truth, yet can the heart grasp it?" With a voice filled with both urgency and compassion, the prophet forged ahead. "The stone cut without hands shall crush the kingdoms of this earth, yes, even Babylon. But it shall also be a cornerstone of hope for those who choose to believe. For the throne of God reigns atop the ashes of human pride." At once a new dawning gripped the king, and in the deepest recesses of his being, the echo of that stone began to sculpt a longing for surrender. But the shadows still lurked, and the wise men of the court shifted, their faces contorted in disbelief and trepidation, eager to silence this proclamation. "I hear the echoes of my ancestors," Nebuchadnezzar murmured, his voice trembling with the weight of the moment. "But they worshipped gods woven from gold. Will it not be so with us as well? How shall I yield to a god unseen?" "Even the heavens declare his glory, Nebuchadnezzar," replied Daniel firmly. "He who is eternal and unseen manifests himself in signs and wonders, illuminating the path for all who walk in darkness. Remember the dreams that brought you low. They were but a reminder of the divine perspective in which earthly power is transient." And as the prophet spoke, a stirring arose within the court, whispers of curiosity intertwining with threads of doubt. The king sat transfixed, caught in the web of his history and the possibility of a new legacy. "Your words ring true, yet my heart fears the unknown." Thus Daniel extended his arms wide, and with fervor he declared, "Fear not, for the God of Israel is a God of mercy, reaching down to lift the humble and restore the broken. His promises extend beyond captivity. Prepare your heart, for the familiar shall become strange. The stone of faith shall rise to proclaim resurrection, even among those who have wandered far. A sudden peace fell, cascading through the chambers, wrapping the hearts of many in quiet expectation. Hope, like a gentle flame ignited, stirred in those who had ears to hear amidst the tumult. Then, as Daniel's words began to settle, a figure emerged from the shadows, the prince of sorcery, the very embodiment of pride seeking to defy the Almighty. "Fool," he spat, venom lacing his voice. "You dare claim revelation over the cult of our traditions? You shall taste the bitterness of defeat." Yet courage surged in Daniel's heart, and he replied boldly, "The stone shall crush your malice. You are merely a shadow, an echo of the darkness that cannot comprehend the light. The kingdom of our God shall arise, and you shall bow before it." With that striking declaration, the kingdom trembled like a leaf shaken by the wind. In that instant, the Lord stirred the hearts of many present, and a current of divine revelation began to ripple through the assembly, and Nebuchadnezzar, wrestling with his very essence, felt the tide of his heart shift. His pride began to crack under the monumental truth of God's sovereignty manifest through Daniel's words. "Will this God of whom you speak," he asked, humbled, "be willing to accept one such as me?" "The door stands open," Daniel proclaimed, his voice rising to echo throughout the hall. "God's mercy transforms the hardened and revives the broken. Seek him with a sincere heart." As the tension in the air released like a bowstring loosed, the figure of darkness withdrew, consumed in the radiance of divine power breaking through the shadows, the first rays of morning illuminating life after a weary night. A hush fell over the court as the assembly collectively realized the enormity of the moment, the potential of going beyond the expected to embrace God's unfolding promise of restoration. And behold, the heavens, as though they tuned in to an eternal melody, began to vibrate with the sweet sound of hope. "Let us rise together," Daniel declared, "for the kingdom is at hand, and grace awaits all who respond in faith." As the murmurings of agreement and desire encircled the room, Nebuchadnezzar, now brought low by the truth spoken to him, rose from his throne. "I shall not hide from this stone any longer. What must I do to embrace this promise?" Daniel, filled with the knowledge of God within him, stepped forward with a gentle heart, sensing the trembling of a soul ready for transformation. "Cast aside the idols of your past. Surrender your reign to the Most High, and he will reveal his glory through you. Behold the stone, for in it lies the eternal hope." And so in that grand court of Babylon, which had long echoed with the sounds of idolatry and rebellion, a moment of redemption dawned, a turning point in the divine plan that stretched beyond generations. Nebuchadnezzar knelt before the one true God, painfully aware of his own need for grace, and the entirety of his kingdom began to stir. These events reverberated through time and space, as the legacy of faith interwove with nations yet unknown, proclaiming the divine story of redemption including Persia and beyond, a testament to the unwavering pursuit of hearts yearning for his truth. The voices of those in attendance rose in a chorus, testifying to the marvelous truths proclaimed that day, declaring his name high above all. God's mercy reigns, his promises endure. The stone of hope shall rise and spread forth, and thus the journey continued, forging ahead into the unknown, a journey where darkness would tremble before the light, and all who gathered would tell of the unyielding faithfulness of God. This was not merely the end, but a new beginning for a remnant, their lives forever entwined in the unfailing grace of their King. As this chapter closed, the very fabric of time bore witness to its impact, inviting all to partake in the eternal narrative spun by the hands of the Creator, leading to the glorious promise fulfilled, a call to hearts hungry for his embrace. And now, dear friends, as we find ourselves echoing the legacy of Daniel, I invite you to engage deeply with God's Word. You need to subscribe now, to stay connected to God's powerful narratives of faith that will inspire and strengthen your own journey. Leave a like now, so together we may help spread his truth through the algorithm and reach the souls who seek his light. Comment below your spiritual reflections and share how this biblical story has impacted your faith. It's a moment to testify. And don't wait even one more second. Share this transformative story with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth, and help us bring the light of his glorious story to every corner of the earth. For in these acts we stand as faithful witnesses to the transformative love of Christ, nurturing and growing his kingdom of hope together.